About an hour, so we have to make sure that we're using our time efficiently. So we've gathered here to discuss hybrid park, public spaces working all year round. The idea behind this session was quite straightforward. We are coming up with parks and pedestrian areas, but we live in a city when these areas can be enjoyed for only 5 or 6 months a year due to very harsh winters and due to the spring and autumn seasons when the sky is gray, there is a slush under our feet, there are a lot of rotting leaves around. So this is the time which is not easy for people to live through, and this is the time when park attendance really goes down. We do see that in these harsh seasons, people are just basically moving between homes and offices. They do not really go for outside walks. So the only places where people can socialize or hang out in these seasons are malls. But according to the latest urban studies, malls are becoming less and less attractive. People are not visiting malls so much. So malls are looking for new identities. They're trying to offer sporting activities, some cultural events. But I think the era of malls is over. So where do people should meet? Where should they go? In Russian cities where they cannot really spend a lot of time outside. Another issue is, of course, public areas. These areas have changed. They're not the areas that just have the trees and the benches to sit on, but these areas are becoming hybrid spaces that can provide education, information. You can go there with your kids to attend a classical music concert, or you can do exercise there. So we are going to discuss all of this today. So I would like to introduce all of our speakers. Sergei Kuznetsov, Chief Architect of Moscow. Natalia Fishman-Bekmambetova, Advisor to the President of the Republic of Tatarstan. Our new and wonderful friend, Mr. Felix Law. The day before yesterday, Mr. Felix Law was with us when we opened Park Lab in Zarядья Park. Jill Peñalosa, founder and chair of AGC, this ambassador of World Urban Parks from Canada. Denis Kusenkov, senior partner of Arteza. Alisa Timoshina, also our new and wonderful friend from the Bureau of Space Development. She is the manager of this bureau. And Pavel Trekhleb, director of the Зарядья Park. He was also at our Park Lab conference the day before yesterday. So to kick off, I would like to give the floor to Sergei Kuznetsov, who was one of the leaders of the creative team of Зарядья. We really did try to make something very special of Зарядья Park. We wanted to make it into an all-seasons place. We're talking about hybrid public spaces. What about Gorky Park? Well, unfortunately, Gorky Park also offers restaurants and food courts, so I think it's a little bit different, but I agree with you. That is a point that we can discuss today. So over to you, Sergei. I would like to talk a little bit about Gorky Park. It is a very important project for the city. Gorky Park, I think, was a bit of a pilot park for Moscow because it started a shift in the whole city. It started a shift of people's perception of parks and public spaces. So we really need to value this experience. When we started thinking about Zarядья Park, we did expand on Gorky Park's experience. And I think without Gorky Park, we wouldn't be able to come up with all of these cool concepts in Zarядья Park. When it comes to Zarядья, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that I think all of you know. But when it comes to the park being an all-seasons park, that was our key research topic even before the bidding procedure. That was a key point that we concentrated on. It became a green heartland of the city, and we even tried not to use the term park. It's not really a park. It is a location. It offers cultural events, educational events. It offers a lot of content when it comes to visuals or great views. I'm going to show you a video that illustrates the view from St. Basil's Cathedral. So if you actually stand next to St. Basil's Cathedral, then you will see the cathedral in front of you on the Spassky Tower on the right and the Tsum Mall on the left. That is something that is reminiscent of the view of St. Mark Cathedral. When on the right you have the Campanile, on the left you have the cathedral. And I think that the only difference here is that when Italians were planning those spaces, we see water nearby. In St. Mark's, it is the Grand Canal, and in Moscow, we have the Moscow River. But the only thing is that there was nothing that connected this place to the river, so people really didn't get a feeling that there was a large body of water nearby. So I think Zarядья was something that provided this access to the river. But we did have certain things that we didn't really achieve. We had a lot of ideas and dreams, but not all of them, as a result, were implemented when we developed the park. And maybe Pavel will give you a bit more details, but we tried to work with the added climate idea. You see here you have two temperatures, the actual temperature and the added temperature. So we were trying to create a different temperature in the park, and it does not mean just adding heat in winter, but it also means adding cool air in summer. So we did achieve it in certain areas, but overall we had certain ideas. See, for instance, this space was meant to function as a cave, but unfortunately we couldn't keep it semi-open due to engineering constraints. But we had to make a full dome. And again, we didn't manage to achieve such differences in temperature under the soaring bridge. That's the restaurant that we were planning to have under the roof. Well, the restaurant is in the park, but it just looks a bit differently. And here's the outside area of the park. This is winter, so we can talk a little bit about the number of visitors to the park in the winter. Of course, we do not have that many visitors. See the difference in temperatures, the actual temperature -3 outside, +17 inside. That again is something that we didn't manage to achieve. There is this open window, which we don't have, although from the engineering point of view, it turned out to be unviable. So a project like this, because it is so complex, that not all of the ideas so implementation in real life. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to Pavel Trechlev. Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about Zarядья Park? So you have these open spaces, you have these semi-open spaces, you have pavilions, you have media centers, you have the nature center, and all of these platforms offer a lot of cultural events, a lot of educational events. So how do these spaces perform in terms of the all-season format?
We understand hybrid term as the intervening different functions to bring together open space and space with augmented climate. I will tell you about the cultural modality and that we have managed to achieve in open spaces. We're going to demonstrate the whole year in dynamics, even 2-year period starting from the time when the park was launched, what processes are, and then we're going to discuss pros and cons from the concept we developed. May I have a clicker, please? While implementing the project cultural coding, we used the experience of creating not only public global spaces, but we looked into how thematic and tourist centers were developed, how thematic parks were developed. All these principles were compiled organically, and we managed to achieve this unique quality, new quality of innovative space. Zarядья Park, I would like to reiterate that this is a very unique site which got the global recognition. We're the only project among the Times rating as the 100 best sites recommended to be visited by the tourists. So we got the award as the best architectural space of the 2018, as the best multimedia project 2018, and a number of other awards which underline the expert recognition globally. The major cloud of meaning, which Zarядья based on landscape, engineering, sites, this flying over bridge, the glass structures, and all the facilities which can be a landmark image, opening these huge, interesting sites on Moscow. This Park Zarядья is major site of country with reference in social networks. Is becoming the great driver to attract both Muscovites and tourists, and the cultural function which we are going to elaborate on as well. Natural urbanism is the backbone of the concept which defines the image of the park, and people attending the park sees unique landscape solutions, beauty, the flying over bridge and the glass mountain. What is inside? Artificial installation of Mr. Panmanarev, this ice cap cave. This reference to the Russian north. This is the site of modern art. Underground museum. Very interesting site. It was not initially the concept, but through excavation process we found remainings of Novgorod wall. It's very unique and bright point exhibition project. This exhibition of Tretyakov gallery pictures, joint lectures with Russian communities. We pay big attention to enlightenment projects in the dome regions. We see how many exhibitions are held. They fly over Moscow. This is the emotional core of the park. This is the first technological site which allows you to really feel that you're so over Moscow and over Russia. And I mean to see key landmarks. This is a key economic driver for our revenue. Half of the revenue, extra budget, account for selling tickets to this special event. The time machine multimodal complex, our biotech entertainment center, which allows the park to feel very comfortable during all the seasons, even if the weather is bad, which is very important when we see that there is very bad weather. All these services allow us to feel quite well in terms of economics, from terms of the perspective of revenue, and these are the services to the guests attending our park, and they see new meaning in attending this park. Another important element of our scientific center, quite unique. This is the product of cooperation with many scientific institutions. We worked out more than 50% of biotechnology, of genetics, and people really clone plants. They grow cloned plants for our exhibitions. This is the ordinary program and experience for the tourist scientific show of Zarядья Park. We need to elaborate on this project in separate, together with Petr Alexandrovich, launched Park Lab program. This is an expert platform attracting the best specialists globally. We have Felix Law with his team attending lab and had his professional workshop and seminar to discuss, shared his experience of operating the site, the Gardens of Bay Park in Singapore. We had a very deep analytical work. We developed a sculpture of the financial model of the park. So the experience of the Gardens by the Bay team was a very interesting experience, and we based on the experience, we looked into the best practice and the practice of operation of this park. So we're going to facilitate and intensify this work. Park of Zarядья is going to become the leading center to bring together global expertise and to share it with all the community. The territory and area of the park. You are aware that we are within the borders of the concert hall. It's a great platform for classical music, for those connoisseurs of classical music. But in Park of Zarядья, we have a lot of public open events in big open-air concert hall. A cappella festival in May, for instance, we gathered about 3,000–4,000 of people. Great picture. Just take a look at that. What kind of emotions are concentrated inside. This is a normal practice of our regular park life in spring and summer, our collaboration with Vienna Opera. So everyone could attend it, the live broadcasted opera from Vienna. We pay huge attention to sports, the flagmanship event in June. This is the start of marathon. World Cup 2018, the Park of Zarядья was a key locations. The tourist work, guides, we have a lot of excursions. So about 12 million people attend Park of Zarядья annually, and many of them select the professional guides to understand how it works. Souvenir shops. How can you just visit the park and not to take the souvenir with you, take you home? We're working with those handicrafts and people who producing these handicrafts in order to involve and penetrate the culture of our country. So the program which has been implemented allows the park to operate all seasons, work with kids, work with families, with elderly. And right now we're developing a new program of volunteer movement. These are not volunteers who are going to participate in many events, those who are integrated in the development of the content and agricultural events. assist in cultural events, developing exhibitions. This is going to be a movement of volunteers who are really engaged and are inspired by the life of the park in order to create these cultural values. Thank you very much for your attention. Natalia, it seems to me that your experience is very interesting from the perspective of work with big parks as Kaban Lake and small squares and parks of Tatarstan Republic. Do you manage in low scale to create the public space which is always active, which is always living organism? Thank you very much, Peter, for giving me the floor. The answer is yes, we manage to do it at any level, with any scale, but the main thing is to create how to operate with that, how to manage that. I'd like to thank you for mentioning Gorky Park as my previous head, Ms. Kapkov, work which was started in 2011, just desires recognition. Let's give a round of applause to our work. So over the last years, I have been happy to work with Tatarstan under the head of Tatarstan Republic. Over these 5 years, we've managed to develop 328 public spaces of different types, from embankment to streets to squares, so on and so forth, in 45 municipalities of Tatarstan Republic, more than 70 settlements. What do I want to say? That we have very harsh timing right that. The first key principle of our work is to discuss it with local community. This is very important thing which differentiates us from Moscow. I'm not just criticizing, but the point is that the people living in Moscow are mostly, half of them, are not even the second generation of Muscovites. They don't have these feelings of attachment to the territory. But the people who live in other Moscows, in other Russian cities, just try and dare to do something without discussing with people in Kazan, and you get a negative response, quite just one. And it's a good thing that you have this response. So the key factor in reasonable work is to work with people. The most beautiful project is not going to be alive and kicking if it doesn't comply with the interests of people, if it triggers the aggressive attitude from people. So you cannot do anything without discussing with the people. Another factor which is important as well is to work with business at the design stage. It was important not to give the examples of Kazan. This is Nizhnekamsk example. We understood that we needed to develop a park. We had to spend money on that to redevelop the area around. Then we will see the business which would like to provide services to the residents. But if we don't have the necessary infrastructure, so the infrastructure will be provided by this supplier, or he's going to do something ugly, and we will have to work during nights and to redevelop this area. So from the very scratch, we're working not only with these residents, but with the business, and then we provide all the infrastructure and give them the right to do some commercial projects. Here we didn't spend any money, but we got the site which was architecturally compliant with our understanding. This is the skiing base, Almatyevsk city planetarium. So this hybrid approach can be different. It's not necessarily should be like Park of Zarядья, but planetarium is a real thing. This is a dome with a heating system inside. Or we design a cafe which we have the tenant for, and it is initially embedded in infrastructure of the park. Another way is to provide for hybrid functions, to work with investors. This is Kazan forest, and the money for the fountains and the eco center house, where we have free lessons to the kids, were provided by the investor, developer, who developed a residential block very close to that place. As after that, the price of the square meter went 10 50% up, and he understood it was reasonable for him to give the money as it would impact on the price of the residential block he was building close to that. So we have ladies. So this is the administration of park in Kazan. We are proud to have created that. It's quite clear why you need to spend money on developing the park, but to find people who can manage this park, it's not quite clear. They have this called weekend special events. This is the Game of Thrones movie demonstration, the only case apart from Russian Railways Stadium. They were the only guys who managed to do that in Sunava rural area, about 200 kilometers from Kazan. It can be a land art festival, which was attended by 5,000 people, almost the whole population of this rural Muslim settlement. And they just enjoyed modern art. This is not about money. Of course, Zarядья is more expensive than the whole settlement is. This is another example when we invite people for New Year. We have this is the Paris Region Ménage team. So the colleagues wanted me to stop speaking and they switched off the presentation. Thank you. Natalia, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very important what you have said, that the hybrid approach and all-season operation depends on the investment attractiveness. For private business interested in these spaces, this is connected with a small business who wants to open up a cafe or kind of a rental facility, is ready to build up the pavilion. But on the other hand, the close areas, houses, the first floors, which are often standing by if there is a public space close. Thank you very much for the opportunity to that. There is a simple thing, actually. If we are building in our climate public space, which during cold season doesn't have a cafe with restroom and with heating system, so the attendance rate goes down 2 times. We see which working seasonally all season long, where there is a ski rental facility, where there is skating season rental facility, where people can change their kids in this heated building. People just attend this park more often. This is just, the devil is always in detail. A couple of words about Gardens by the Bay, why they are very important for us. Everybody says it's international experience, they have their own life, their own climate, everything is not connected with us at all. But in fact, what Pavel said, Gardens by the Bay was a very important reference for Park of Zarядья. This is new super technological park with very huge educational component and with 2 unique conservatories with a constant climate. I'd like to ask Felix Law to tell us how in extreme humid and hot conditions the park is operating, how you manage to constantly keep this activity inside the park. Every year, about 12-13 million of visitors, Gardens by the Bay.
I think it's a great privilege for me to be at Moscow Urban Forum and to this beautiful city of Moscow. Singapore and Russia is similar in some ways, but maybe more different. We don't have your 4 seasons. We will wish we will have a beautiful winter, but in Singapore it's 30 degrees whole year round. So you can imagine people are perspiring all the time. We are also different in the sense of size. Singapore is a very small country. It's a city-state. It's a small little island, maybe 700 square kilometers, which is maybe 1/4 the size of inner Moscow, which means that we are maybe 1/1,000,000 of the whole of Russia, very small. From one end of the island to the other end, you take 45 minutes by car, you finish it. And because we are very small, and we have about 5 million people staying in that little island. Everybody stay in high-rise apartment. And because everyone stay in high-rise apartment, parks and gardens is very important to Singapore. And since the 1960s, our founding prime minister, some of you may know, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, he's a great fan. Before the term environmental sustainability come into fashion now, he was already a green person. So he built parks and gardens. If you land in our Changi airport, go into the city, you see many trees. In fact, now the whole island, 50%, if you take a satellite picture down, 50% is covered with green. That's how green we are. In the 2000s, I think now we talk about something similar. We also wanted to do different because we moved from a garden city to a city in the garden, meaning the entire island is a garden and the city sits on it. And to bring this city in the garden to a next level, we want to design a different kind of park. In the term, maybe we call it a garden. Traditionally, people who go to garden, this is a Western culture. People who go to a garden, they must love plants. So we wanted to design a garden that maybe people are not that interested in plants, but we want to get them out, which is why some of you know Gardens by the Bay is famous for that structure, their super trees, and our conservatories. And our conservatories is very popular because in Singapore it's very hot, and in there is air conditioned. We didn't know that, but later we discovered people keep buying tickets. Every year since we opened, it has from 2 million when we first opened in 2012, every year the visitorship has been growing by 2 million each year. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 million. I think enough of talking from me. Maybe I'll show a short video. I know we are running out of time. My video is 3 minutes, and maybe you'll see what we are doing from the video. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Феликс.
Thank you very much, Felix. Thank you so much for a wonderful video, for telling us about the park. I would like to give the floor to Penny. He's a person who designs public spaces all over the world. So when it comes to a hybrid space, a multifunctional public space, what do you understand? What do you mean by that? What do you think it should mean?
Hello. Yeah. So this afternoon we're talking about parks and streets and public spaces. So I want you to open the mind about what do we mean. Sometimes parks in the center of the city, sometimes cities that are redevelopment like Malmo, sometimes it's skateboards. I like this nice tree, but it's not because of the tree, but it's because it's a nice cozy area for older people. Sometimes it's in the middle of the city like Piedmont, sometimes are elevated like Highline, sometimes like the Beans, sometimes along the rivers. So there are many ways. What do we do in the parks? Many things. Sometimes I was watching the football cup. I went in Chicago. I went to the public places, and that's what they were doing in Seoul, South Korea, or in Bogota, or in Germany. But it's not just about sports. The Umbrella Revolution in Hong Kong, they go to streets, they go to the parks, they go to the public places, Occupy Wall Street, Je suis Charlie. Because the parks and the public places are equalizers. Everybody's the same. No one knows who's rich, who's poor, who's fat, who's skinny. And this is 2 million people in Rio, not during the World Cup, but the Pope came and gave a mass for 2 million people. And it doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's a small place, like this one's, and you change it, like this person's watching everyone, and it totally transforms the areas. I was working in Alaska, and I saw all of these people ice fishing. So it's also different. So parks and public spaces remind me that a definition of a good city is where I want to sleep at home, but I want to live outside. The 4 seasons, I want to be outside 52 weeks. And we have a fantastic opportunity. We're going to double the population that lives in cities in the next 40 years. We're going to go from 3 billion to over 7 billion. But we've been focusing on cars, and not on people's happiness. And this is the kind of cities that we have been building. So when we're talking about parks and streets and public places, this is horrible. And many emerging countries are doing exactly the same things. It seems like we knew how to do cities. We learned, and then we unlearned. So we gotta go back. We need to improve the cities that we have today, but we also gotta create great cities for many, many people. And cities, we need to recreate. You know, it's sometimes like if we're gonna do a pasta, we put only water, it becomes a spiceless pasta. No one would like spiceless pasta. So we got ingredients, or people don't eat it. So we get the nice ingredients, and we got the nice pasta. Same thing happens with the cities. Cities have some ingredients, like the parks, the streets, the sidewalks. They are the spices. You know, there are spice cities and there are spiceless cities. You want to live in a spice city. You know, let me give you an example. If you don't know anybody in a city, you come here, you're not going to meet anybody. Spiceless or spiced. You know, this is some people use the parking for a few hours a week. Some use it 24/7. You know, it's not about money. This park costs a lot of money, but you come here, you don't do anything. You take photos, you never go back because there is nothing to do. Here, there's lots of things. So spiceless and spiced. So there are so many things. When I was a commissioner in Colombia, I learned that it's not about the money. We built over 200 parks in one term all over the city. The Pope had to come here, gave a mass for 1 million people. He left, nothing happened. In 4 years, we turned it into the nicest park for active, for passive, for contemplative recreation. The uses and the activities is what is most important in the parks. And I really like that Natalia made such emphasis on uses and activities, because that is what makes people go to the parks and then come back. And it's not just about big parks. We did hundreds of small parks in the neighborhoods, in very poor areas, neighborhoods that didn't even have paved streets. Why parks? Because when the poor people really feel bad, it's in the leisure time. So we need to improve how people use the leisure time. I mean, a good park is not the one that wins design awards. A great park is where people visit, they stay, and they come back. So when we're talking about parks, people say, should we do small or large parks? We gotta do both, because they satisfy very different needs. The small neighborhood park is where we develop a sense of belonging. We meet our neighbors, but we cannot play football people, so we need medium-sized parks, and we want to see do canoeing and concerts. So we also need the large parks. So at the end of the day, what we need is a citywide park system with small, with medium, with large. And winter is critical because we gotta work even more in the winter. People go to the parks in the summer almost without anything. In winter, we gotta even tell the people that do the weather not to criticize winter, because for 6 months, oh, tomorrow it's gonna be horrible, it's gonna be cold. No. If you don't wanna don't live in a winter city. So in the winter cities, we gotta program even more. We gotta do more activities. We gotta do more uses. And more than the cold, there is no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. So we gotta put lights all over the city, in the parks, in the sidewalks. Maybe we shouldn't call them Christmas lights, but winter lights. It's nice that now we're turning roads for cars into parks for people. Here there was a river through the middle of Oros, a small city. 50 years ago, they built a road. 8 years ago, they said, can we go to Moscow and bring the best people? Probably not. So they brought out the river. So you want to live in this city or you want to live in this city? It's very, very different. These are the kind of things. 6 lanes for cars. No, in Copenhagen, they took out the 4 lanes in the middle, and they created a linear park of 1.5 kilometers through the middle of this road. In Seoul, South Korea, again, they took a river, they put 6 lanes, it got full of cars, they did a second floor, it got full of cars, they wanted a 3rd floor, the mayor said, no 3rd, no 2nd, then he brought out the river, he put public transit, and he created a linear park. 13 kilometers through the middle of Seoul, and it's something that is magnificent. This is not about parks. When we talk about parks and winter and so, it's about the benefits. Parks in the 52 weeks of the year are good about culture, education, recreation, environment, transportation, health, economic development. It's not just about fun and games. It's also about life and death. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Гил. Обожаем вас слушать.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gil. We love listening to you. Apart from giving us a lot of wonderful information, you always give us a lot of positive vibes, a lot of great energy. Thank you very much. And what is very important is Gil is an ambassador of World Urban Parks. This is a global association of park experts. And so we believe that Gil will be one of the speakers at the World Urban Parks Forum in Kazan, which will be held there at the beginning of October. I would like to give the floor to Denis Kusenkov. His company has been in place for more than 12 years. Denis is a person who designs and builds public spaces. So Denis is going to bring us a little bit down to earth. But Denis, what do you think about All Seasons Park? Is it something that we can actually create in Moscow? Thank you very much, Peter. I would like to compliment you, Gil. When you were talking, it was absolutely so inspiring. People were smiling. Thank you very much. And I think that Natalia, Sergey, and all of the colleagues who are present here at the round table today, they are all very practical people. So I would like to bring us back a little bit to reality. And because we have to draw a lot of practical knowledge from this session, I would like to draw your attention to one important thing. Any project needs a leader. When we're talking about creating a space, when we are designing a space, getting an idea about it, we have to understand that there was always a leader behind a project. It's Kapkov in Gorky Park, Sergey in Zarядья. Leaders are very important, and the time when we create public spaces are important. It takes years sometimes to develop a public space. Peter, how many years have you been working as part of the Zarядья project? From 2011. So Piotr has been working for Zarядья for 8 years. For 8 years of his life, he was working on ideas. He was winning bidding procedures. He was taking active part in construction. He was talking with Russian international renowned architects. That is a lot of work. That is a lot of effort. So if we talk about practicality, this concept of the park being all season now is become basically a standard requirement. People want to see their parks function all year round. So I would like to compliment my colleagues. I would like to compliment Natalia when she said that they first and foremost did a survey of locals. And it is, I think, a really great approach. Whatever functions a future public space should have, these functions should be discussed with the citizens so that we make sure that all of these functions come to life. If a leader or a person behind the idea embarks on this mission, they have to understand that it's not just creative ideas, but it is also a lot of administrative and paperwork. All of the parks are usually built according to government estimates. So you can build a glass dome, but you have to make sure that you prove that you need that you can build something. You can build a conservatory. Conservatory is great. It will attract people all year round, but it's going to cost a lot of money. And it will require a lot of funds for all of the engineering structures. And we live in a country with a very harsh climate, minus 30 degrees in winter, plus 30 degrees in summer. And if you create a park with a lot of plants, you have a dry spell for 2 weeks and all of your plants will die. If it goes below minus 30 in winter, all of your plants will die again. And of course, the experience of Singapore is absolutely fantastic, and other European countries show a lot of great achievements, but we do live in a very specific, very harsh climate, so we have to take that into account. So during the design stage, we have to analyze all of the spending, not just for design and construction, but also for maintenance. How you're going to maintain your conservatories, your movie theater, your exhibition centers. So you have to make sure that you lease out some spaces to businesses. You have to approach it as a whole complex. If you build a park next to residential housing or next to a mall, then everybody is going to benefit. You know that every business is interested in attracting more people. And park can help businesses with that. I do hope that I didn't really kill your inspiration, but everything can be done. But look at us. We already have a number of very good precedents. Gorky Park, Зарядья, Zilart. So we are riding the wave. We are learning a lot of new things, and so we can move further. When it comes to park development, we're just at the start of the road, and I think that we have very good prospects. Thank you very much, Denise. And I would like to give the floor to Alisa Timoshina. She is the person who drives the development of new parks in St. Petersburg. So, Alisa, could you please tell us about your park? And following that, maybe we can discuss the idea. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to tell you about the experience of St. Petersburg. Some of you probably know or have heard that St. Petersburg is developing a project that has been nicknamed the Зарядья of St. Petersburg. And I think that it is actually quite great that the next big city to St. Petersburg is Moscow. And Moscow sets the trend for the right way to work with the environment. I work in the Spatial Development Bureau of St. Petersburg. This is an organization that has been founded by a club of leaders. We have the support of the city government. So our organization uses ASI methodology for set design. So we provide support to the city government when it comes to negotiations with different public groups, and we also provide support when it comes to urban development. So our park project needed a lot of moderation for different stockholders. In April this year, the governor of St. Petersburg, Alexander Peglov, presented to the president a concept of new public space. Vladimir Putin supported this project. So we are going to create a park which is going to be 23 hectares. That is a very ambitious project. For now, the name of the project is Art Park. So right now, we already launched the construction of the Palace of Dance, or the Eichmann Palace of Dance. We are going to open a restaurant. We are going to have exhibitions there, but for now, we do not really have a ready design project when it comes to architecture, but this public space has a very tumultuous history. At first, they were going to organize global fairs there. Then in the 30s, Nikolai Baranov wanted to set up a park there, but during Soviet times, they had Applied Chemistry Institute in that area. Then all of these buildings were knocked down. It was quite a polluted area. So at first, the government was thinking about developing a housing project there, but then people are thinking about opening a judicial corridor, and then the decision was made to open a park. I wanted to show you the projects that were presented to the president of this country, but something doesn't work. So at least we'll try and fix it. But yesterday I talked to Peter, and we discussed that sometimes complicated projects can only be developed when they have the highest support. So I'll try to tell you a little bit about the value of this location. It is absolutely unique, not just for St. Petersburg, but for the world. It gives a great viewpoint of the Petropavlovsk castle and the Hermitage. So that is something that the citizens of St. Petersburg were very supportive of, and the community of the citizens of St. Petersburg introduced a number of proposals for the design documents. We're going to have an international competition for the best design, and it is a great challenge for us to find community relations experts, because we have to find a compromise between a green area and between multifunctional development, which had been announced. So we are quite interested in finding new formats of cooperation. You know that there are a lot of advanced and very outspoken communities of citizens in St. Petersburg. So we would like maybe to get pointers from the leaders of this market on how to work with different communities, and we are really going to welcome this opportunity. Thank you very much, Alisa. But I would like to ask my colleagues maybe just to change maybe the slides in the presentation on the screen. So you showed it to two presidents, the president of the country and president of Tatarstan. Well, we have about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to expand on the ideas that Alisa talked about. We have an all-star panel here, so I would like to ask all of the panelists maybe to give advice to Alisa and colleagues. They are just at the start of the road, so maybe what do you think they need to do as soon as possible? What should be preserved in this project, which was intended to be a judicial quarter, to make sure that this project is really successful?
I don't like giving advices. I'm much asked about this park. It was compared with Zarядья park. In brief, within 30 seconds, I would advise you, same thing as Denise said, you need to be found someone accountable for the project from the very beginning to the very end, and then the result will be good. All these procedures, building procedures, construction, are quite clear. That's it. Of course, I totally agree with Sergey. It's a very difficult way from the beginning to the end. I would advise the following thing. Seeing this project as a landmark of St. Petersburg, I'm sure that there should be architectural bidding procedure, but when we have a professional bidding procedure, we do not involve the residents. So then we should implement the project of a winner of this bidding procedure. The most important part right now, together with the experts and together with the residents, to have a heavy round of expert public hearings, and we need to take the wishes into the terms of references together with the functions provided by those accountable for the project. If the associations, stories connected with the place, this is I'm giving my experience of Kaban Lake. If it is a part of the terms of references of the technical task for the architect, so this is automatically incorporated and considers maximum number of stakeholders.
I just want to echo what the other speakers have said. I think first and foremost, it's very important to check with the people what they want in the park. So in Gardens by the Bay, when we first started, we did that. People tell us their different needs. We didn't set out right at the onset to become a tourist attraction. I think one common thinking is that we were trying to be a tourist attraction. Actually, we were wanting to be a people's garden. All Singaporeans will come, and our thinking is that if the Singaporeans come, the tourists also want to go where the tourists are going. And I think I just want to make that point. Thanks.
Thank you, Felix. Gil, please.
Yes, I think that my recommendation would be to be bold, to be ambitious, to do something that is really spectacular. Don't worry about the money. Money is not the issue. There is enough money if you make the case. I mean, this morning I heard the mayor of Moscow saying that he's going to build 800 kilometers of roads. Can you imagine how much money does it cost to build 800 kilometers? But so just a few of those in St. Petersburg would make it. I mean, make the case. It's not about a park. It's about public health, or it's about economic development, or it's about climate change, or it's about, so make it bold, make it big, and also make the case. And one last recommendation. In October, go to Kazan, because in Kazan, you know, Natasha invited me to Tatarstan, and I went to Kazan, and I saw so many parks a couple of years ago. And on the board of World Urban Parks, I hope all of you become members, we opened an international competition to host the International World Parks Congress. And Kazan was one of the proponents, and they won the award. And it's going to take place in October, and there's going to be people coming. This is really interesting because everybody learns from everybody. Natasha led a team that has built over 300 parks in Tatarstan. So people are coming from Australia and from Mexico and from everywhere to learn about Russia, to learn about Tatarstan, to learn about Kazan. So everybody learns from everybody. So go to Kazan in October.
Good advice.
Dennis. course, I'd like to draw attention to the preparatory stage. I urge you not to be fast, to restructure, to describe everything. Of course, residents, expert community, the analysis, the business, everything should be structured and should be appropriately done. Whenever you push the button start and when you announce bidding procedure, you explain why it cannot be done, why it can be done, why it is impossible to be done. It should be implemented at the preparatory stage. Just take 6 months before you announce this bidding procedure when you can do everything appropriately, and you won't have this timing when there is a creative concept in place, and then we're trying to match them with the budget, with the expert opinion. So the preparatory stage is the most important one, and then we have best practices. You take the right people and everything will be successful, but you need to prepare as good as possible. Pavel. The practice of such project implementation is quite clear. All these procedures have been fine-tuned. This is analytics collection, data collection. I'm not going to elaborate on that. This is a many years experience of different projects. I'd like to focus on a different thing. Park Zarядья had a very reasonable solution, having special unit responsible for the concept, not at the stage when the site was ready. They did right in Moscow. It allowed them to shape a very professional team beforehand. The team of lawyers, the teams of those responsible for finance, technical maintenance, service, different professionals in landscape planning, in culture. It allowed to find many solutions at the idea stage. We saw the presentation of 2013 when the beautiful picture of ice cave was provided. This is magnificent. This is a gives flow of emotions. This is a case, but it cost about 300-400 million of rubles only for electricity, for power during summer and springtime. In winter, it's a little bit easier. So the question is whether you need to spend budget money to get such a case. So there was an adjustment of the solutions. We made a close ice cave. It is a magnificent work of art together with Mr. Ponomaryov, and this site gives that profit to the park. So we need to understand that some optimal and reasonable solutions can be found, and for that purpose we need a good team beforehand, the people who are going to ask not very comfortable questions. So Natalia, you know, I have a kind of a game-changing comment. Over the last years, we've been talking about context of parks and urbanism, about architects. Yesterday we had a session, roundtable, who were responsible for the support of young architects. And the moderator said, then, you know, I visited your country 8 years ago, you're complaining, but it's great, the more and more talented people you have. We have material to write about. So the question is not about architects, the question about the clients. What Denise is saying, what the brief is, and it's similar to the creative phenomenon. If the client doesn't understand what the people want, what the city needs, how to maintain that, how to legally stipulate that, there is no a single architect is going to give a good project. Since architect is going to think how to maintain this site fully, if he doesn't understand what kind of machine is going to clean the park, he is not going to think about the noise. We have a Gorkinsky forest, there is a stage architects provided for a great picture, but they didn't care about the sound because they were not organizers for the event. They shouldn't think about the sound system. Our major objective is our major problem, is the lack within the state, is the competent clients. If you want to have this great project in St. Petersburg, your task is to train the client. And then it can be ordered to architects, but the client is the major problems in Russia. Thank you very much, Natalia. Let me give you kind of a recommendation. I do believe that every park is unique, and the history of its creation is unique. And the teams should be flexible, apart from having one person accountable for the whole project, there should be a team. It is very important. The team which will help, and the patience, since it's a time-consuming process. The patience is the quality which brings us all here together. It's common to all of us, apart from Natalia. Thank you very much. We're waiting for you in Kazan, next Urban Forum in Moscow as well.